Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 class. Today's lesson will be on word problems, and I know that is like super fun for you. Actually, you're probably thinking, oh no, word problems. Yeah, so we're going to do the same as we did with equations, except we're going to do word problems with inequalities this time. So it's really mostly the same, just a little bit different, solving them the way that we solve inequalities, but yet using the same principles that we solved equalities with. So page is 141 in your book, and that is 4.4, inequality word problems. So one of the key things that we need to know is we need to know some of our vocabulary, some definitions here. So when you see words like is greater than, obviously that would get a greater than sign. But the same thing could be said if we see the word is more than. Okay, so is greater than, is more than, we're going to use the greater than sign. Then we would have is less than, and then sometimes it might say something like it's fewer than. So less and fewer is the same, greater and more is the same. Then the next one is greater than or equal to, and we'd use the greater than or equal to sign. But then they might say something like is at least. For example, there are at least 12 players on the team. In other words, that could be 12 or it could be more than 12. Okay, so the at least includes the 12, and then it could also be more than that. And then the other one would be is less than or equal to, and then is at most. So if I say there's at most 12 players on the team, it could include 12, but there would be 12 or fewer. Okay, so 12 would be the maximum, and then you could have less than 12 also. And then also, here we have the last one, is not equal to or does not equal. So these are things that you're going to be seeing in the words, and then we have to build an inequality, basically an equation with an n equals sign, greater than, less than, more than, or equal to, something like that. And then we're just going to solve it just like we have solved these other ones. So if the sentence says something like 5 more than a number is more than 9. So 5 more than a number plus 5 is more than, so you'd have greater than 9. This is how you do it. 1/3 of a number is less than or equal to 30. 1/3 of n is less than or equal to 30. Okay, you can look through those other ones there, but let's go ahead and skip over to the next page, 142. So again, it's really the same process, except for now we're just using the inequality instead of the equal sign. So same thing, only just a little tiny bit different. All right, let's go ahead and look here at this first example. So the Mission Club is having a spaghetti dinner to raise funds. At $4 per dinner, how many dinners must they sell to take in at least $350? All right, so there's that at least. Okay, so are we okay if we get $350? Yes, we are. We would like that or more. Okay, so at least, and we would, you can go back in the book here and look back at your words if you get stuck and say, what's that supposed to mean? So go back to page 141. Where was the at least? Is at least. That's going to be a greater than or equal to sign. Okay, so we're going to have a greater than or equal to sign. What is it greater than or equal to? Well, $350. So 350, and you could write dollars if you want here. You don't necessarily have to, but that's going to be our total. Okay, and then we have to go back and say, okay, what other information do we have? Well, we have $4 per dinner. In other words, 4 times the number of dinners that we have. So this would just be 4n on this side, 4x, it doesn't matter. And honestly, that's all I need in order to solve this one, and I'm just ready to go ahead and start working it. How do we work it? do what we can do. There's nothing we can do. So we start moving the numbers to one side and the letters to the other. So I'm just going to divide both sides by 4. And we're going to get n has to be, or the number of dinners, the number of people there has to be. And we'll go ahead and do this. So 4, and you can get out your calculator if you want here, but we'll kind of do it just in our brains, if you will. So 4 goes into 35, and if you need to write it like this, you can. So 4 goes into 35 8 times, and that's 32, and then 30. 4 goes into 30. What is that? That would be 7 times, and that gives you 28, and then a 20 because we're bringing down, we're adding a 0. 4 goes into 25 times, and that equals 20. Okay, so here's our number, 87.5. So the number would have to be greater than or equal to 87.5. Now, before you just write that as an answer, let's go back up and read the question. The Missions Club is having a spaghetti dinner to raise funds. At $4 per dinner, how many dinners must they sell? Can you sell 0.5 of a dinner? No, you cannot sell this 0.5 of a dinner. So you would have to say the number of dinners has to be greater than or equal to, what if we say 87? Well, if we only sell 87, we didn't get to our 350. So we have to sell at least 88 dinners to get to our $350. So the answer to this problem would be that n has to be greater than or equal to 88. And probably the best way to write this answer would be 88 or more dinners. Okay. So that would be what you'd have to sell. If you sold 87, if you sold 87, you didn't sell enough. If you sell 88, then you've made your $350. Okay? So here's the next one. Mr. Freeland must make no less than $3,280 each month to meet his expenses. If he earns $1,200 a month salary plus an additional $325 for every car he sells, how many cars must he sell? This one's a little bit more complicated, but again, what we want to do is we just want to kind of start writing things out. So where did you see the inequality that's in there? So he has to make no less than. No less than. What does that mean? So if we go back in our book and we look on page 141 and we're looking for that no less than, I don't see it. It doesn't say no less than. I see less than, but let's think about what this means. Let's go back over here. And because, sometimes we can say things that aren't in the exact same wording that we're going to find in the book. So Mr. Freeland must make no less than. Another way to say that would be he needs to make at least 3,280, right? Like if he makes 3,270, he didn't make enough to meet his expenses for that month. So he has to make at least, okay? So at least 320. So look back here and we do have one for at least. So that's going to be the greater than or equal to. So sometimes you do have to kind of think through these and just figure out, okay, what one would I use? So at least would be the greater than or equal to sign. And it has to be, we have to meet this number right here, this 3,280. So 3,280. All right. And so if he earns 1,200, so that's going to be his earnings for every month regardless. That's just like him going into work. He makes that much. So it's going to be, this is going to be added to whatever his commissions are. So he's going to make 1,200. But then his commissions, like how many cars does he need to sell? And that would be, we could use X or we could use C for cars. So let's use C for cars. So the cars plus his salary of 1,200 has to equal this. But we can't just say cars because we're trying to figure out how many cars does he need to sell. And what does it say? It says that for every car he sells, there's $325. So 325 times C, 325C will get us to where we're going. Um, Again, not the easiest to build out, but if you'll take it piece by piece and kind of think through it, you should be able to do these. So I always start with, okay, what's my sign? And then I start with what's the easy side of that. So the easy side of it is how much does he needs to make at least this much. And then I can start building out the other side. How did I do that? Well, the first part was he always earns 1,200. So that's like he always earns that no matter how many cars he sells. And then the second part was he got $325 per car. So go ahead, take your time, build it out, and then now we're ready to go ahead and solve this. So we'll go ahead and subtract 1,200 from both sides. It's going to cancel. We're going to get 325C is greater than or equal to, and then you just subtract this out. So this gives me $2,080. Okay. And then I would divide both sides by 325. 325. This is where you would want to use your calculator. That will cancel. And I'm going to end up with C is greater than or equal to. If I plug this into the calculator, I get 6.4 cars. So what does that mean? He has to sell at least how many cars? If he sells 6, he doesn't get to enough money because it's 6.4. So he must sell 7 cars. That would be your answer. At least 7 cars. And go ahead and every time that you do that, make sure that you are labeling it, write cars next to it, because it's a story problem. So we had to put what exactly our solution was. Was it $7? Was it 7, whatever dinners from the last one? In this one, 7 cars. So whatever he has to sell, you would put that 7 trucks, 7, whatever it is that the story problem is asking for. Okay. A little bit shorter lesson, but fairly complicated. A lot of stuff going on there. So make sure that as you're trying to solve these, you're going back. Use that page in your book. All right. So in your book, that page is 141. 141. Use that page, and that way you can go back and you can look at these and say, okay, what symbol should I use? That's where you got to start. You got to start with the symbol. Once you get the symbol, then you put your total, then you work your way backwards, and I think that you should be able to solve these. Okay, that's all I've got for you. Hope you learned something there. If you missed anything, slide it back, watch it again. We'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.